My son stole $200,000 from my retirement account to buy his senator father-in-law a Mercedes. I found out on March 15th when my bank called about an unusual large withdrawal. Daniel had used his emergency access to drain nearly everything I'd saved in 30 years of military service. The money went straight to Ashford Motors in Charleston for a brand new S-Class with custom leather and titanium trim. When I hung up that phone, I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I just smiled and reached for my old address book, the one with numbers most people don't get to call. Senator William Ashford had no idea who he was really dealing with, but he was about to learn why you should never underestimate a decorated Army colonel who spent 3 decades in military intelligence. The humiliation started 3 days later at Sarah's birthday party. Daniel had insisted I come to the Charleston Country Club for his wife's 32nd birthday celebration. I should have known something was wrong when he specifically asked me to wear my dress uniform. Sarah's family loves hearing war stories, he'd said. I arrived at 7 sharp in my army dress blues, 32 ribbons gleaming on my chest. The Purple Heart sat prominently below my combat infantry badge. I'd earned every decoration through blood, sweat, and 27 months in Afghanistan. The country club reeked of old money and older privilege. Marble columns stretched 3 stories high. Crystal chandeliers cast shadows across Persian rugs worth more than most people's cars. The Ashford family table sat in the center of the main dining room, positioned so everyone could see them. Senator William Ashford rose to greet me with the kind of handshake politicians practice in mirrors. He was 62, silver-haired, with the soft look of a man who'd never missed a meal or faced actual danger. "So you're Daniel's father," he said, voice carrying across nearby tables. "The old soldier." "Colonel Mitchell," I corrected quietly. "Of course." His smile never reached his eyes. "Daniel tells me you're retired now." The way he said retired made it sound like discarded. Sarah hugged me warmly, but I caught the nervous glance she shot her father. Daniel stood beside his wife, fidgeting with his tie. Something was definitely wrong. Dinner conversation flowed around defense contracts, political fundraisers, and vacation homes in the Hamptons. I listened more than I spoke, noting how the senator's business associates hung on his every word. These were serious players, defense contractors, lobbyists, federal judges. Then came the moment that changed everything. Senator Ashford raised his wine glass, commanding attention from the entire dining room. "I'd like to thank my son-in-law Daniel for his generous contribution to our family. The Mercedes he purchased for me represents more than transportation. It represents respect." Polite applause rippled through the room. I felt my jaw tighten. "Some people," the senator continued, his eyes finding mine, "think their service medals matter in the real world. They don't understand that honor doesn't pay country club dues." A few guests chuckled. Daniel's face went pale. "Real success requires real sacrifice," Ashford went on. "Not the kind you get from playing soldier, but the kind that comes from building actual power, political power, financial power." I set down my water glass carefully. The senator was enjoying himself now, playing to his audience. "I've seen old soldiers struggle with civilian life. They think their little ribbons entitle them to respect they haven't earned." He gestured vaguely toward my uniform. "But this is the real world. Money talks. Everything else is just noise." The dining room had gone quiet. 60 people watching a public execution disguised as dinner conversation. Daniel finally found his voice. "Dad Ashford, maybe we should—" No, the senator waved him off. "It's important your father understands his place in this family. Some people need to learn when to retreat." I stood slowly, every eye in the room tracking my movement. For 30 years, I'd faced enemy fire, navigated Pentagon politics, and kept national secrets. This pampered politician thought he could humiliate me in front of my own son. "You're absolutely right, Senator," I said, voice steady and calm. "Honor doesn't pay country club dues." His smile widened, thinking he'd won. "But it's something money can't buy," I continued, "and that's a lesson some people learn too late." The senator's smile faltered slightly. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a business card. Plain white, no fancy letterhead. I placed it on the table in front of him. "My contact information in case you ever need to discuss service with someone who understands its true value." I turned to Daniel. "Son, we'll talk soon." To Sarah, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. I hope 32 brings you wisdom." And to the senator, "Service always matters, Senator. Always." I walked out of that dining room with my spine straight and my head high, while 60 of Charleston's elite watched in stunned silence. Behind me, I heard the senator's nervous laugh as he tried to restart the conversation. But the damage was done. I'd shown I wouldn't be broken by his public assault. The senator made one critical mistake that night. He assumed a quiet old soldier was the same as a defeated one. The call came the next morning at 6:15. I was drinking coffee on my back porch, watching sunrise paint the Ashley River gold, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code, same as the senator's office. Colonel Mitchell, this is Senator Ashford. Senator. I kept my voice neutral while reaching for the small recording device I always kept nearby. Old habits from intelligence work. We need to talk about last night's misunderstanding. I don't recall any misunderstanding. A pause. When he spoke again, the political courtesy was gone. Listen carefully, old man. Your son needs to understand his place in this family. Sarah is my daughter, and she deserves better than being associated with... He searched for the word. Poverty. Daniel makes a good living in real estate. Real estate? He laughed. Do you know what real money looks like, Colonel? I made $2.3 million last year just from my defense contract consulting. Real money, not toy soldier pensions. I pressed record and settled back in my chair. Tell me more about these defense contracts. Gladly. See, while you were playing dress-up in some desert, real men were building real wealth. I've helped secure contracts for every major defense firm in the Southeast. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics. They all come to me when they need doors opened in Washington. Impressive. You're damn right it's impressive. And that Mercedes? That was just the beginning. Daniel's learning how real families operate. We take care of our own, but we expect loyalty in return. He was warming up now, enjoying the lecture. Your son understands value, even if you don't. That $200,000 he invested in our relationship will pay dividends for years. Access to the right clubs, the right connections, the right opportunities. My grip tightened on the phone. You know where that money came from? I know it came from someone smart enough to recognize a good investment. His voice turned cold. Unlike his father, who apparently thinks military service entitles him to something. Such as? Respect, consideration, a seat at the grown-up table. The senator's laugh was ugly. Let me explain reality, Colonel. Your son can either be part of a powerful family or he can be dragged down by dead weight. His choice. Dead weight. You heard me. Sarah's tired of making excuses for her husband's family situation. She wants children soon, and those children will be Ashfords. They'll attend the right schools, join the right clubs, marry the right people. I watched a pelican dive into the river, coming up with a fish. Clean, efficient, purposeful. And if Daniel doesn't meet your expectations, then maybe Sarah needs to reconsider her options. Divorce isn't complicated when one party has unlimited legal resources and the other has, what, a father with a military pension? The threat hung in the air like cordite smoke. I could destroy Daniel's real estate license with 3 phone calls, he continued. I could blacklist him from every country club in the state. I could make sure Sarah gets full custody of any future children and enough alimony to live comfortably while Daniel... He paused. Well, Daniel would learn about real struggle. You do that to your own daughter's husband? I do that to protect my daughter from a family that drags her down. His voice dropped to a whisper. So here's what's going to happen, Colonel. You're going to disappear from their lives. No more surprise visits, no more family dinners, no more war stories. You're going to let Daniel become the man he needs to be without your influence. And if I refuse, then you'll discover that real power isn't earned through service. It's taken through strength. I have judges in my pocket, prosecutors on my payroll, and enough political capital to destroy a nothing retiree like you. The line crackled with static. Are we clear, old soldier? I set down my coffee cup and watched another pelican hunt in the shallows. Patient, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Crystal clear, Senator. Good. I knew you'd see reason. Military types usually understand surrender when they're outgunned. Oh, I understand completely. I kept my voice conversational, almost friendly. Just one question before you go. What? Do you really think 30 years in Army intelligence didn't teach me anything about gathering evidence? Dead silence. Senator, you just declared war on the wrong veteran. I hung up and sat back in my chair, morning sun warming my face while the recording device captured every damning word of our conversation. Senator William Ashford had made 3 fatal mistakes in 12 minutes. First, he had admitted to corrupt defense contract dealings. Second, he'd threatened to destroy my family. Third, and most importantly, he had assumed I was just another broken-down old soldier with no resources to fight back. He had no idea I was recording every word. He had no idea about my contacts in federal law enforcement. And he had no idea that I'd spent 3 decades learning how to destroy enemies who threatened everything I held dear. The war was on, and I intended to win. I spent 2 hours after that phone call walking the streets of my neighborhood, wrestling with a decision that would change everything. On one hand was my son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked through his first heartbreak. Daniel was desperate for acceptance, willing to betray his own father for a chance at high society approval. On the other hand was justice. Pure, clean justice for every veteran who'd been dismissed by corrupt politicians like Ashford. For every defense contract that went to cronies instead of qualified veteran-owned businesses. For every young soldier who'd come home to find that their service meant nothing to the people who'd sent them to war. I could forgive Daniel. Sons make mistakes, especially when they're manipulated by predators. But Senator William Ashford had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. By 10 a.m., I'd made my choice. I unlocked my home office and pulled out a file cabinet that hadn't been opened in 5 years. Inside were business cards, contact numbers, and classified clearance documents that most people never see. 30 years in military intelligence creates a network that never really retires. The first call went to FBI agent Rebecca Torres in Colombia. Rebecca and I had worked together in Army intelligence before she transitioned to federal law enforcement. She owed her career to a recommendation letter I'd written after she'd helped uncover a contractor fraud ring in Iraq. "Jimmy Mitchell," she said, genuine warmth in her voice. "It's been too long." "Rebecca, I need to talk to you about Senator William Ashford." A pause. "The South Carolina senator? What's your interest?" "He's been threatening my family while running what sounds like a defense contract corruption scheme." "That's a serious accusation. I have recordings." Another pause. "Can you be in Columbia by 2 o'clock? On my way." The second call went to my old commanding officer, General Patricia Walsh, now working at the Defense Department's Inspector General office. Patricia had spent 28 years cleaning up military corruption, and she didn't suffer fools. "Jimmy, what's wrong? You sound like you're about to declare war." "Someone's been using defense contracts to line their pockets while cutting out veteran-owned businesses. Name: Senator William Ashford, South Carolina. Send me everything you have. Today." The third call was the hardest. Daniel answered on the second ring, sounding exhausted. "Dad, about last night." "Son, I need you to listen very carefully. Are you alone?" "Sarah's at her yoga class." "Dad, what Senator Ashford said was—" "Daniel," my voice cut through his explanation. "Did you take $200,000 from my retirement account?" Silence. "Did you use that money to buy Senator Ashford a Mercedes?" "Dad, I can explain." "Yes or no?" "Yes." His voice was barely a whisper. "But it wasn't stealing. I have access to your accounts for emergencies, and Sarah said—" "Sarah told you to steal from me?" "It wasn't stealing. It was an investment in our future. Senator Ashford can open doors for us, Dad. He has connections that could change our lives." I closed my eyes, feeling 30 years of careful parenting crumble in my chest. "Daniel, that money represented my entire life savings." "I know, but your mother and I saved every penny for 30 years so we could leave you something. She died believing you'd use that inheritance to build a better life." "Mom would understand. Your mother would be ashamed." The words came out harder than I intended, but they were true. "She'd be ashamed that her son sold his integrity for a chance to join people who despise everything we taught him." "Dad, please." "I love you, son, but I won't let you destroy yourself for these people." "What does that mean?" I looked at the FBI contact card sitting on my desk next to the recording device that held Senator Ashford's confession. "It means some battles you fight for family, others you fight for honor." "Dad, you're scaring me." "Good. Maybe fear will wake you up before it's too late." I hung up and sat in my office, surrounded by 30 years of military memorabilia. Photos with presidents, commendation letters, classified operation certificates that proved I'd spent my life serving something bigger than myself. Senator Ashford thought he could threaten my family and walk away. He thought an old soldier was the same as a helpless one. He was about to learn the difference between political power and real power. The kind of power that comes from knowing where bodies are buried, who can be trusted, and how to destroy enemies so completely they never recover. I picked up my car keys and headed for Columbia. Rebecca was waiting, and justice was calling. Rebecca Torres met me in a windowless conference room at the FBI's Columbia field office. She looked exactly like I remembered. Sharp eyes, graying hair pulled back efficiently, the kind of focused intensity that made her legendary in Army intelligence. "Let me hear the recording," she said without preamble. I played Senator Ashford's phone call from start to finish. Rebecca took notes, occasionally rewinding sections to catch specific details. When it ended, she leaned back in her chair. "Jesus, Jimmy. He confessed to everything. 2.3 million in defense contracts, threats against my family, and admissions of political corruption, plus the bribery angle with the Mercedes purchase." She tapped her pen against the notepad. "This isn't just corruption, it's a federal racketeering case. What do you need from me?" "Everything. Bank records, contract documents, witness statements. But first, we need to be smart about this." She leaned forward. "Ashford has serious political connections. If we move too fast or too sloppy, he'll lawyer up and disappear behind Senate privilege." "What's your plan?" "We're going to build the perfect case. Start with a DoD audit of his defense contracts. Let him panic while we gather evidence, then hit him with everything at once." Rebecca made 3 phone calls over the next hour. The first went to the Defense Department's Inspector General, requesting an immediate audit of all contracts associated with Senator Ashford's consulting firm. The second went to the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, flagging unusual transactions involving offshore accounts. The third went to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Charleston, requesting a federal investigation into public corruption. "Timeline?" I asked. "Audit starts Monday. Should take 2 weeks to find the obvious violations, another week to trace the money. We'll have enough for arrests by month's end." "And my son?" Rebecca's expression softened. "Daniel wasn't part of the original conspiracy. If he cooperates and returns the stolen money, we can probably work out immunity." I drove home with a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief that justice was finally in motion. Dread about what would happen to my family when the hammer fell. The first sign of success came 3 days later. I was reading the Charleston Post and Courier over breakfast when I saw the headline, "DoD launches audit of local defense contracts." The article was brief, professional, and devastating. The Department of Defense Inspector General has announced a comprehensive audit of defense contracts awarded to firms with ties to South Carolina political figures. The review, which began Monday morning, will examine over $50 million in contracts awarded between 2019 and 2024. My phone rang before I finished reading. "Dad," Daniel's voice was tight with panic, "did you see the news?" "I saw it. Senator Ashford is freaking out. He called an emergency family meeting for tonight. Are you going?" "Sarah insists." "Dad, what if this is connected to what, Daniel?" A long pause. "To us, to the Mercedes, to that phone call he made to you. Smart boy. Too bad it took a federal investigation to wake him up. Son, I want you to think very carefully about your next moves. Think about who you can trust, who's been honest with you, and who's been using you. Dad, if something bad happens, then you do the right thing, whatever that costs you." The second sign came that afternoon. Sarah called, crying. "Colonel Mitchell, it's Sarah. I need to ask you something." "What is it, sweetheart?" "Did my father really say those things to you? About your service, about Daniel, about our family?" Someone had played her the recording. "Good. He did. I'm so sorry." Her voice broke. "I had no idea he felt that way about military families. My grandfather served in Korea, and my father always spoke about veterans with respect. People change when money's involved. Colonel Mitchell, there's something else. Daniel told me about the money he took from your account." "I know. I didn't ask him to do that. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you." "He said it was to impress my family, to prove he could provide for me. But that money," she was crying openly now, "that was your life savings, your retirement. How could he think I'd want something bought with stolen money?" "Because your father convinced him that's how your family operates." It's not. It's not how I was raised." Her voice grew stronger. "Colonel Mitchell, I want to make this right. I want to return every penny with interest." "Sarah, no, please, let me do this. Let me prove that some Ashfords still have honor." The third sign came that evening. Daniel called again, this time from outside the Ashford family mansion. "Dad, you need to know what happened at dinner tonight." "I'm listening." "Senator Ashford is losing his mind. He spent 2 hours screaming about political enemies and conspiracy theories. He thinks someone's targeting him specifically." "Someone is?" "He kept asking about your phone call, about whether I'd told anyone what he said." He's paranoid, Dad. Really paranoid. What did you tell him? The truth. That I hadn't talked to anyone except Sarah. Good. But Dad, there's something else. He's planning to fight back. He's hired some private investigation firm to dig up dirt on his enemies. He specifically mentioned you. I smiled in the darkness of my kitchen. Let him waste money on private investigators. They'd find exactly what I wanted them to find. The record of a decorated veteran with an impeccable service record and no skeletons worth hiding. Daniel, I want you to remember something. When this is over, you'll have to choose between the family that raised you with honor and the family that's trying to buy your loyalty with stolen money. I've already chosen, Dad. Good. Then get ready for war. The chess game was in motion. Senator Ashford would soon discover that DOD audits were just the opening move. The real battle was still coming. Daniel showed up at my door the next morning looking like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," he said, brushing past me into the kitchen. I poured him coffee and waited. Sometimes the best interrogation technique is silence. "You're behind the audit," he said finally. "Senator Ashford is convinced you have connections in Washington." Smart man. "Dad, this isn't a game. He's talking about destroying you. Private investigators, media attacks, legal harassment. He has resources you can't imagine." I sipped my coffee and studied my son's face. Hollow eyes, nervous energy, the look of a man watching his world collapse. "Daniel, how much do you really know about Senator Ashford's business dealings?" "What do you mean?" "The defense contracts, the offshore accounts, the veteran-owned businesses that mysteriously lost bids to his cronies." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know anything about that stuff." "But you knew something was wrong, didn't you? Otherwise, why steal my money instead of asking for a loan?" "I didn't steal—" He stopped mid-sentence, shoulders sagging. "I did steal. God, Dad, I stole from my own father." "Why?" "Because Sarah's family made me feel like nothing, like I wasn't good enough, like my family wasn't good enough." His voice cracked. "And I believed them. $200,000, Daniel. I know. Your mother's life insurance, my deployment savings. 30 years of putting away every spare dollar so you'd have something after we were gone. I know." He slammed his coffee cup down. "I know what I did, okay? I betrayed everything you taught me for a chance to impress people who think we're garbage." I reached across the table and gripped his shoulder. "Then help me fix it." "How?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Back off or face consequences. You have 24 hours. I showed Daniel the screen. His face went pale. "That's from him, isn't it?" "Probably." "Dad, you don't understand. Senator Ashford doesn't make empty threats. He destroyed a journalist who tried to investigate his defense contracts. Bankrupted him with legal fees. Got him blacklisted from every major newspaper. I'm not a journalist. You're just one old soldier against a sitting U.S. senator." I stood up and walked to my study, Daniel following. I opened the file cabinet and pulled out a folder marked "Classified, Eyes Only." "Daniel, what do you think I did for 30 years in the Army? You served. You fought in Afghanistan. I was Army intelligence, son, counterintelligence specifically. My job was finding traitors, building cases against enemies of the state, and making sure bad actors faced justice. I opened the folder, revealing commendation letters from 3 presidents, citations for classified operations, and contact cards for officials Daniel had only seen on television. Senator Ashford thinks he's fighting a retired soldier. He's actually fighting someone who spent 3 decades learning how to destroy people exactly like him. Daniel stared at the documents. "Jesus, Dad. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because classified means classified, and because I hoped you'd never need to know what your father really did for his country." My phone rang. Rebecca Torres. "Jimmy, we have a problem. Ashford's people reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're claiming you're conducting a vendetta against a sitting senator." "Vendetta?" "They have recordings of your phone conversations with Daniel. They're painting you as a bitter retiree trying to frame an innocent politician." I looked at my son, watching understanding dawn in his eyes. "Rebecca, how would they have recordings of my private conversations with my son?" "Unknown. Could be surveillance. Could be someone close to the family wearing a wire." Daniel's face went white. "Sarah's phone. Senator Ashford gave her a new phone last week. Said it was a family gift. The enemy had made his first real mistake. Surveillance without a warrant, evidence tampering, intimidation of witnesses." "Daniel, are you ready to choose a side?" "I chose yesterday. What do you need me to do?" "Help me bury him." The attack came 48 hours later. coordinated and vicious. I was drinking morning coffee when my neighbor knocked on the door, holding a copy of the Charleston City paper. The headline made my blood freeze. Local Veterans Vendetta, Decorated Soldier Targets, Senator over Family Dispute. The article was a masterpiece of character assassination disguised as journalism. It painted me as a bitter retiree who couldn't accept my son's success, a mentally unstable veteran using military connections to harass an innocent politician. They'd interviewed anonymous sources who questioned my military record, suggested PTSD had affected my judgment, and implied that my wife's death had left me unbalanced. They'd even gotten quotes from former Army colleagues who claimed I'd always been jealous of successful people. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. and didn't stop. Colonel Mitchell, this is Janet Reeves from Channel 4 News. We'd like your response to allegations that you're using military connections to conduct a personal vendetta against Senator Ashford. No comment. Sir, the Senator's office has provided documentation suggesting you've made threats against... I hung up and unplugged the landline. By 10 a.m., there were 3 news vans parked outside my house. By noon, the story had gone statewide. Troubled veteran-stalked senator led the evening news on every channel. But Senator Ashford had made a critical miscalculation. The first sign came when my old Army unit started calling. Staff Sergeant Mike Williams, who'd served under me in Afghanistan, was first. Colonel, sir, just saw the news. That's bullshit, and everyone who served with you knows it. Then Captain Lisa Thompson from our intelligence unit. Jimmy, whoever's running this smear campaign doesn't know who they're messing with. Then Master Sergeant Robert Davis. Colonel, we're organizing a response. Hope that's okay with you. By Wednesday afternoon, social media exploded with #VeteranJustice. Former soldiers posted photos of my commendations, shared stories of my leadership under fire, documented the lives I'd saved and the missions I'd led. The veterans of foreign wars issued a statement calling the media attack a disgraceful assault on a decorated hero who served with distinction for 3 decades. The American Legion followed with their own press release. Colonel James Mitchell's service record speaks for itself. Any attempt to smear his character is an attack on all who served. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Thursday morning, Daniel called with news that changed everything. Dad, Sarah found something. Her father kept files in his home office, contracts, bank statements, correspondence. She copied everything before he could destroy it. What kind of files? Defense contracts worth millions, payments to offshore accounts, a whole list of veteran-owned businesses that were blacklisted from bidding. How many businesses? 27. All owned by Purple Heart recipients or disabled veterans, all mysteriously deemed unqualified, while contracts went to firms owned by Senator Ashford's political donors. The documents Sarah provided were devastating. Bank records showing $2.3 million in consulting fees paid to shell companies. Emails directing contract officers to exclude veteran-owned businesses. Correspondence with defense contractors agreeing to split profits from inflated government contracts. But the smoking gun was a recorded conversation between Senator Ashford and a Lockheed Martin executive discussing how to manage veteran expectations while steering contracts to reliable partners. I called Rebecca immediately. "This is enough for the federal racketeering case," she said after reviewing the evidence. "Wire fraud, conspiracy, violation of veteran-owned small business regulations. We can arrest him today." "Not yet." "Jimmy, he wants a media war? Let's give him one he'll never forget." I made one phone call to General Patricia Walsh at the Pentagon. "Patricia, I need a favor, a big one." "Name it." "I need every veteran in South Carolina to know what Senator William Ashford really thinks about their service." "Consider it done." Friday morning, the Charleston Post and Courier ran a front-page story that destroyed Senator Ashford's political career in 6-column inches. DoD audit reveals systematic exclusion of veteran-owned businesses from defense contracts. The story detailed how Senator Ashford's consulting firm had deliberately steered $50 million in contracts away from qualified veteran-owned businesses, costing hundreds of jobs and millions in lost revenue. By Friday afternoon, every major veterans organization in South Carolina had called for Ashford's resignation. By Friday evening, 3 more news outlets had obtained copies of his recorded conversations about managing veteran expectations. Saturday morning brought the coup de grace, a live interview with Sarah Ashford Mitchell on Channel 4 News, where she publicly apologized to the veteran community and announced her family's complete support for the federal investigation. "My father betrayed everything I was taught about honor and service," she said, looking directly into the camera. "Colonel Mitchell is a hero who deserves respect, not persecution. I'm ashamed that anyone bearing the Ashford name participated in attacks against veterans who sacrificed for our freedom. The war was over. Now came the execution. Sunday morning, Rebecca called with the timeline. Federal arraignment is scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. We're coordinating with the U.S. Attorney to make sure this gets maximum exposure. Where? Charleston Federal Courthouse. Judge Harrison is presiding. Former Marine. Purple Heart recipient. Zero tolerance for corruption. Perfect. Senator Ashford would face justice from another veteran he'd probably dismissed as irrelevant. I spent Sunday afternoon organizing evidence with Daniel and Sarah. My kitchen table became a war room covered with bank statements, contract documents, recorded conversations, and photographic evidence. "Dad, there's something else," Daniel said, pulling out a manila folder. Sarah found this in her father's safe. Inside were photographs from Senator Ashford's political fundraisers over the past 5 years. Photo after photo of handshake deals with defense contractors, meetings with foreign arms dealers, private dinners with Pentagon officials who later awarded multi-million-dollar contracts. "Look at this one." Sarah pointed to a photo from March 2023. "That's my father shaking hands with the CEO of Meridian Defense Systems." 3 days later, Meridian got a no-bid contract worth $18 million. "And this," Daniel added, holding up another photo. "Senator Ashford with Chinese military attachés at a private dinner in Charleston. The date stamp shows February 2024. I studied the photo carefully. Chinese military officials meeting privately with a U.S. senator who controlled defense appropriations. This wasn't just corruption, it was potentially treason. Rebecca needs to see these immediately. While Daniel drove the photos to Columbia, Sarah and I continued cataloging evidence. The scope of Senator Ashford's corruption was staggering. Over 5 years, he'd steered $127 million in defense contracts to preferred firms while systematically excluding veteran-owned businesses. The pattern was clear. Qualified veteran companies would submit bids, undergo initial approval, then suddenly be deemed unqualified for vague technical reasons. Contracts would then go to firms owned by Ashford's political donors, usually at inflated prices. "Sarah, why didn't anyone notice this before?" Because most of the excluded businesses were small operations run by single veterans or families. They didn't have resources to fight Pentagon bureaucracy or hire expensive lawyers. But the pattern only becomes obvious when you see all the data together. Dad was careful to spread the corruption across multiple agencies and time periods. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Holy shit, Jimmy. These photos are smoking guns. Chinese meeting could be espionage charges." Monday brought more revelations. General Walsh called from Washington with updates from the Pentagon investigation. "Jimmy, we've traced Ashford's network back 6 years. This goes beyond defense contracts. He's been selling committee access to foreign interests, accepting payments for classified briefings, and using his position to manipulate weapons export licenses." Export licenses? Approved sales of advanced military technology to countries that were supposed to be restricted. We think he took payments to expedite approvals. Evidence? Swiss bank accounts, encrypted communications, payment schedules that match Senate vote dates? The FBI's International Corruption Unit is taking over? Tuesday, the Charleston business community began distancing themselves from Senator Ashford. The country club where he'd humiliated me quietly revoked his membership. 3 defense contractors publicly announced they were reviewing their consulting relationships. Wednesday brought the most satisfying call of all. "Colonel Mitchell, this is Tom Bradley from the Charleston Veterans Council. We've been following your situation in the news." "Yes, sir." "We want you to know that Friday morning, over 500 local veterans will be at the courthouse to show support when Senator Ashford is arrested." "That's not necessary." "With respect, sir, it's completely necessary. That man stole from every veteran in South Carolina. He needs to see what real patriotism looks like." Thursday evening, Daniel and I sat on my back porch watching sunset paint the Ashley River red. "Dad, I owe you an apology that's about 5 years overdue." "You don't owe me anything, son." "I do. I spent so long being ashamed of where I came from that I forgot what really matters." He pulled out a check written for $200,000. "Sarah and I liquidated our savings. Every penny you lost, plus $20,000 in interest." I took the check, but didn't look at the amount. "Daniel, money was never the point." "I know. The point was honor, integrity, the values you tried to teach me before I got distracted by people who mistake wealth for worth. And now? Now I remember who raised me, and I'm proud to be the son of Colonel James Mitchell. Friday morning would bring the final confrontation. Senator William Ashford would face the justice he'd spent years avoiding. But more importantly, my son had remembered who he really was. Sometimes that's the greatest victory of all. Friday morning dawned clear and cold in Charleston. I put on my army dress blues for the second time in 2 weeks, but this time every ribbon felt earned, every decoration a reminder of what real service meant. The Purple Heart sat heavy on my chest, representing blood spilled for something larger than myself. Daniel picked me up at 8:30, wearing a simple black suit and his grandfather's American flag pin. "You ready for this, Dad?" "I've been ready for 30 years. The Charleston Federal Courthouse sat in the heart of the historic district, its neoclassical columns rising like pillars of justice against the morning sky. But what took my breath away wasn't the architecture. It was the crowd. 500 veterans filled the courthouse plaza. World War II survivors in wheelchairs, Vietnam vets wearing faded unit patches, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans standing tall despite missing limbs. They held signs reading, "Honor our service," and "Justice for veterans," and "Senator Ashford, you're fired." Tom Bradley from the Veterans Council approached as we walked up the courthouse steps. "Colonel Mitchell, sir, we wanted you to know. Whatever happens today, the veteran community stands with you." "I appreciate that, Tom." "Sir, there's something else. Channel 4 is broadcasting live, C-SPAN is carrying the arraignment, and CNN picked up the story. The whole country's watching." "Perfect." Senator William Ashford wanted a public battle. He was about to get one he'd never forget. Inside the courthouse, the scene was electric with tension. Federal marshals lined the hallways, reporters jockeyed for position, and curious citizens packed the public gallery. At exactly 9:45, Senator Ashford arrived with his legal team. He looked smaller than I remembered. The confident politician who'd humiliated me at the country club was gone, replaced by a nervous man in an expensive suit trying to project authority he no longer possessed. Our eyes met across the courthouse lobby. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement between enemies who understood the stakes. He looked away first. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Harrison." Judge Harrison was everything Rebecca had promised, a former Marine colonel with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd lost her left arm in Iraq, but wore her judicial robes with the same pride she'd once worn combat fatigues. "Mr. Ashford, you stand accused of conspiracy, wire fraud, violation of federal contracting regulations, and accepting bribes from foreign nationals. How do you plead?" Senator Ashford's lead attorney, a Charleston Blue Bloods named Hampton Morrison III, stood slowly. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty to all charges. Furthermore, we contend that this prosecution represents a politically motivated attack." "Mr. Morrison," Judge Harrison's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade, "save your political theories for the campaign trail. This is a federal courthouse, and I'm more interested in evidence than excuses." U.S. Attorney Michael Rodriguez took the podium with the bearing of a prosecutor who knew he held all the cards. "Your Honor, the evidence against Senator Ashford is overwhelming. Bank records show $2.3 million in illegal payments. Recorded conversations document his conspiracy to exclude veteran-owned businesses from federal contracts. Photographs prove his meetings with foreign military officials while controlling defense appropriations." He gestured toward a table covered with evidence boxes. "Most damning of all, we have Senator Ashford's own recorded words threatening a decorated Army veteran who dared to question his corruption." The prosecutor played excerpts from Senator Ashford's phone call to me. His voice filled the courtroom, dripping with contempt as he dismissed military service and threatened my family. I watched the gallery's reaction, reporters scribbling furiously, veterans clenching their fists. Even Senator Ashford's own legal team looked uncomfortable. When the recording ended, Judge Harrison leaned forward. "Mr. Ashford, did you make those statements?" Senator Ashford whispered to his attorney, then stood slowly. "Your Honor, the context of that conversation." "Yes or no, Senator? Did you make those statements?" "Yes, but—" "Thank you. Continue, Mr. Rodriguez." The prosecutor laid out the full scope of the corruption. 27 veteran-owned businesses deliberately excluded from contracts, $57 million in fraudulent awards, Swiss bank accounts, offshore shells, and a conspiracy that stretched from Charleston to Beijing. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Colonel James Mitchell to the stand." I walked to the witness stand with my spine straight and my shoulders back, 30 years of military bearing on full display. The courtroom fell silent as I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. "Colonel Mitchell, please tell the court about your military service." I kept my answers crisp and factual. 30 years in the Army, multiple combat deployments, decorated for valor, 32 ribbons representing service to country, not self. "And your interaction with Senator Ashford?" I told the story simply, chronologically, without embellishment: the country club humiliation, the threatening phone call, the systematic corruption that stole opportunities from the veterans who'd served with honor. "Colonel, why didn't you simply file a complaint through normal channels?" "Because Senator Ashford controlled those channels. He had judges in his pocket, prosecutors on his payroll, and enough political capital to destroy anyone who challenged him." I looked directly at the defendant. "He told me so himself." "Thank you, Colonel. No further questions." Senator Ashford's attorney tried to cross-examine me, painting me as a bitter retiree conducting a personal vendetta, but every attack only reinforced the contrast between his client's corruption and my record of service. "Colonel Mitchell, isn't it true that you contacted federal agencies specifically to target my client?" "I contacted federal agencies to report federal crimes." "You used your military connections to orchestrate this prosecution." "I used my knowledge of federal law enforcement to ensure justice was served." "You've admitted recording private phone conversations without consent." "I recorded a sitting senator confessing to criminal conspiracy and threatening a veteran's family." The attorney tried several more approaches, but each question backfired. By the time he sat down, Senator Ashford looked like a man watching his political career die in real time. Judge Harrison called a brief recess. In the hallway, Rebecca Torres pulled me aside. "Jimmy, we just got word from the State Department. Those Chinese military officials in the photographs, they're intelligence operatives. Ashford wasn't just selling contracts, he was selling classified defense information." "Espionage charges?" "Federal prosecutors are already preparing the paperwork." When court reconvened, Judge Harrison addressed Senator Ashford directly. "Mr. Ashford, given the serious nature of these charges and the evidence of foreign contacts, I'm denying bail and ordering you held pending trial." The courtroom erupted. Senator Ashford's face went white as federal marshals moved toward him. "Your Honor," his attorney protested, "my client is a sitting United States senator. Your client is an accused traitor," Judge Harrison replied coldly. "And in my courtroom, that trumps any political title." The marshals cuffed Senator Ashford while news cameras captured every moment. As they led him past my seat, he stopped and looked at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, old soldier." I stood slowly, every veteran in the gallery rising with me. "Senator, it's been over since the moment you forgot what honor means." Outside the courthouse, the veteran community erupted in celebration, 500 voices chanting "Justice served," while news crews broadcast the moment live to the nation. Daniel found me in the crowd, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, I'm so proud to be your son." Sarah stood beside him, no longer ashamed of her family name, but determined to rebuild it with integrity. "Colonel Mitchell, thank you for teaching us what real strength looks like." I looked out at the celebrating veterans, the news cameras, the courthouse where justice had finally been served. Senator William Ashford had wanted to destroy a quiet old soldier who didn't know his place. Instead, he'd awakened a decorated warrior who knew exactly how to win battles that mattered. 6 months later, I sat on my back porch reading the morning paper with genuine satisfaction. The headline read, "Former Senator Ashford sentenced to 15 years in federal prison." The article detailed his conviction on 47 counts of conspiracy, fraud, and espionage. The Chinese intelligence connection had added another decade to his sentence. More importantly, the Pentagon had established the Veterans First Initiative, requiring every defense contract to reserve 20% for veteran-owned businesses. 27 companies that had been blacklisted were now thriving with federal contracts. My phone rang, Daniel calling from his new office. "Dad, just wanted to give you the latest numbers. Mitchell and Associates Real Estate closed 4 deals this week." After Senator Ashford's arrest, Daniel had left the high-pressure world of luxury real estate to focus on helping veteran families find affordable homes. His business was smaller, but built on integrity instead of stolen money. "How's Sarah handling the transition?" "Better than expected. Turns out she never wanted the country club lifestyle anyway. She's happier now than she's been in years." Sarah had kept her promise, returning every penny of the stolen money plus interest. More significantly, she'd testified before Congress about defense contract corruption, helping pass legislation to prevent future abuse. And the baby? Due in December. We've decided to name him James after his grandfather. I smiled, watching a pelican hunt in the Ashley River. Some victories take time to appreciate fully. Daniel, bring Sarah by for dinner Sunday. I'll make your mother's pot roast. She'd like that, Dad. We both would. After I hung up, I opened the mail to find a letter from the Veterans Administration. Inside was a certificate naming me Veteran Advocate of the Year for my role in exposing defense contract corruption. The letter was signed by the new Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Rebecca Torres, who'd been promoted after leading the Ashford investigation. At the bottom, she'd handwritten a note. Jimmy, some battles are worth fighting. Thanks for reminding us what honor looks like. I folded the letter carefully and placed it next to my Purple Heart in the display case. Senator William Ashford had tried to teach me my place in his world. Instead, I'd taught him his place in mine. The war was over. Honor had won. And my family understood finally what really mattered.